By the way, one of my most memorable events was the 20-inning game, Mets Cardinals. I was working that one with Tim McCarver back in 2010
That was in St. Louis. I think
in St. Louis.
I think Mike Pelfrey got the win in relief that game, if my
Uh,
memory is
you're
correct.
absolutely right. And
Yeah,
and I think my claim to fame is I never went to the men's room the entire game,
I
7 hours.
I could do it at my age. There's no way I could do that.
Because you never think the game's going to go that long. You figure it's going
No.
to end right after the 11th to 12th, but I think it's a mental thing. I think Tim only went once, but I never actually left the booth that game.
Jay Horwitz, a special edition of Amazing Conversations. My old friend Kenny Albert, whose book A Mike Four Seasons, tremendous book, Kenny. I loved it a lot. A lot of great stories. Kenny, the only man in Canada and North America to do play-by-play for the NBA, NHL, what I mean, the NBA, the NHL, MLB, and NFL. When do you sleep?
That's a good question, Jay. I've been real fortunate to be involved in so many different sports throughout my career. And this time of year, we're chatting in October, and the craziness has begun with the NFL season, the NHL getting underway a couple of weeks ago. I worked 10 baseball games over the summer for Fox, but just to give you an example, this past week might have been one of the craziest that I've ever, gone through in my professional career and traveling career. Was in London for an NFL game between the Vikings and Browns. Flew home as we speak a week ago today, and left the next day for Las Vegas for a hockey game. Took a red eye to Buffalo for the Rangers MSG Networks opener against the Sabres, and then went back to Las Vegas for a football game. So it was London, Vegas, Buffalo, Vegas. That's sort of the extreme. It's not usually, that many miles over the course of a week, but you never know wherever the schedule brings me, with all the different sports. I think I've memorized the flight schedules of all the airlines, and probably learned some tricks along the way as far as how to get from one city to another when it could be pretty challenging.
Katie, I'm an OPR guy. We were like 5 pages of notes for a baseball game. How do you prepare? How do you prepare for games when you're bouncing around like that? I mean, it's a constant looking at notes, looking stuff up. I mean, you don't have a lot of time to spare, do you, to prepare?
I like to start as early as possible for a specific game if it is one of those busy weeks. I have a checklist that I go through. I actually have it on my phone, and I'll put a little check mark um, every time I complete one of the tasks, so to speak. But no matter what the game is, if it's football, if it's hockey, if it's baseball, if it's basketball, I usually try to watch both teams' previous game. Definitely do it in football. They only play once a week, and I'm often seeing teams that I haven't seen in a while, or perhaps haven't seen all season. So you watch the team's previous game just to get a feel for the names and numbers, the storylines. You hear what the other announcers are talking about. A lot of reading. I can't emphasize to young broadcasters enough how important the reading part of it is, and I'll usually go a week back, as far as the teams that I'm covering, and then it's going through statistics and game notes, which you're very familiar with, going to practices and listening to press conferences and talking to coaches and players. It's the same checklist for every sport, but the volume of time is a lot more for football because they play only one game a week. Like I said, you could be working teams you haven't seen all season. Um, the other sports, baseball, they're playing every day. Hockey, basketball, they play 3 or 4 games a week. So you're paying attention to those teams. You're watching games. You're reading. You're following it. When I do a TNT national hockey game, it's similar to football, but a lot less hours as far as the prep. But if I'm working a local Rangers game, I know the Rangers like the back of my hand, so there's not as much prep that goes into it. You're still talking to the coach and going to the morning skate on the day of a game and studying the opponent. So, while it's different for every sport and national versus local, my checklist is the same as far as what I go through, before each and every game. And I try to get ahead, like I said. I had some downtime in Las Vegas in the hotel on Saturday before the football game on Sunday. I had downtime in the airport. I tend to get a lot done on flights. So
Do you
with
sleep
three
on
hockey
flights,
games,
Kenny?
with
Do you
three hockey
sleep?
games this coming week, I tried to get ahead as far as the work goes.
Do you sleep at all on the flights?
If it's an overnight flight, a red eye, I can. It's not a great sleep on a flight like that, but on a regular flight during the day, I might doze off for a little while, but I find that I get more work done on the flights than anywhere because there are no interruptions.
I don't know if you know, Katie, I have a long history with the Albert family. I'll give you a brief synopsis. When Marv was your dad, Marv was the sports anchor at NBC. I used to hit him with these cockamamie FDU stories, and he ran every one of them. Uh,
Franklin Jacobs.
Franklin Jacobs, a baseball player who got by a pitch 128 times. I was really goalie on the same team, one-arm soccer player, one-arm fencer. So when I left Fairleigh Dickinson, Jim Bouton and your dad were nice enough to speak at my retirement dinner, and I have a lot of great pictures. But I, you know, Marv used to think I used to make this stuff up, and he, okay, not again with one of your BS. But you know what? What about your father? He liked the human interest stuff, and Fairleigh Dickinson wasn't the biggest school in the world, but we had these human interest stories that transcended, big or small, and God bless him, your dad ran them all for me.
Well, those were the years when he was working at Channel 4 doing the local sports. That was pretty much, when I was growing up, kindergarten through high school. Those were
Uh,
the years he was at WNBC. So I used to tag along a lot. And, I remember meeting you back in the day, for the first time when I was with him. And it was, such a great childhood being able to learn via osmosis and go to games. And when I was old enough, I would bring a tape recorder to Madison Square Garden or Shea Stadium and announce, a couple of innings into the tape recorder. But I certainly remember, hearing about your Fairleigh Dickinson days. And then,
yeah,
you and I really first, we had met prior, but
I know what you're going to say, Ruth LaBalmo.
well, even before that, Ruth was my wedding coordinator, who I know you were very close with. That was in
Al, the coach of Philly
1996,
Dickinson. Right, right.
Ruth and Al. But prior to that, when I was in college, Howie Rose hired me to be his associate producer for Mets Extra when it first started in 1987. So 87 through the first couple of months of the 1990 season before I moved away, I was at every home game with Howie up in the booth, and
What a good,
uh,
great man.
yeah,
You know,
oh,
I,
the best.
you, and I got I was responsible for getting your Uncle Steve fired. My first year, true story, 1980, we were on Pix 11, I think. We were in a rain delay in Pittsburgh. And I went on TV and told all my Fairleigh Dickinson stories for about 45 minutes. And 2 days after that, Steve got fired. Wanted to know why he put this jerk on the phone on the TV for so long. But Al, I used to know Al a little bit, but Marvin, your dad's always been great to me. And kid, not blow smoke. You know what I liked about you is you never was a pretense about it. You never were Marv's son. Everything you did on his own, like the 10-hour bus trips in the minor league hockey. You're more than happy you paid your dues.
I tried to work as hard as I could because, first of all, I love being around it, love being around sports. Did a lot of sports writing in high school. Um, got very lucky when a local cable station came to my school in Port Washington, Long Island, and they didn't have any announcers for a girls' basketball game. So I volunteered and then wound up working like 75 to 100 games for them over the next 3 years. So, just I was a big radio listener, Jay. We didn't have cable TV when I was growing up, so I would listen to every game possible in the New York area, all sports. And, those were some of the great memories, whether it was Lindsey Nelson, Bob Murphy, and Ralph Kiner on the Mets games, Yankees games, hockey, basketball, football. Just tried to do as much as I could. Internships. The job with Howie was unbelievable. I got to be right there at every Mets game, like I said, 87 through early in the 90s season.
But
And
you would game six in World Series, weren't you? I mean, you would
game
game.
six, I missed. I tell the story in my book. I was doing stats at a Knicks game that night
That's right. That's
for
right.
Greg Gumbel, but I was there for game seven. I was there for the clincher in 86. And I've had the opportunity, in later years to work games with Ron Darling and Keith Hernandez and David Cohn. So, always love hearing them reminisce about those years. But, I don't know if you remember this, Jay, but during that time when I was working for Howie, I would arrange guests and bring in other writers and broadcasters into the booth. But after the game, I would go down to the clubhouse, and there was a headset on the wall
I
right outside
remember.
the door, and you would bring over the player of the game, and I would hand over that headset and help coordinate the interview. So I have such great memories of those years and those Mets teams.
Kenny, you were never going to be a doctor or a lawyer, right? I mean, at
No,
eight,
no.
you got your tape recorder when you were 5, went to a Ranger game when you were 6, then became a Ranger stat guy when you were like 14 or 15. So you really, and with your uncles, it was never doctor, lawyer, astronomer. It was always your chosen field, right?
When I get asked that question, just growing up around it, you learn so much, and it's similar to doctors and lawyers, and really any profession where the kids grow up around it, and in many cases go into that same profession. I knew when I was really young. I had that tape recorder for my parents when I was 5 or 6, and by the way, I'm sure as you knew and read about, my parents actually met at Shea Stadium in
Right.
1964. They were both working for the Mets in different capacities. But no, it's really all that I ever wanted to do. And, was very lucky to get those opportunities during high school and college and with Howie and the various internships. And really lucky when I was hired for that first minor league hockey job in Baltimore by a team called the Skipjacks, just to get the experience of doing the games on the radio and also working in the office, doing PR and marketing and sales and the 10-hour bus rides that you mentioned. But looking back, I wouldn't trade in those 2 years for anything.
Kenny, you give your wife Barb a lot of credit for being your travel bailer out or on trips. You would call her at home, and she would rearrange flights when storms or weather came up. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? She used to help you out.
Yeah,
Probably
no,
still does.
she's definitely helped out on a number of occasions, but she probably understands my schedule better than anybody. I have to give her so much credit. She's home alone half the time, and our kids are 22 and 26 now. But when they were young, I was gone a lot on weekends and at nights. But we tried to make the best of it. I was around a lot during the day. I would drive to school and pick up from school when I could, and go to a lot of the weekday activities that other parents might not be able to because they were working. So nobody understands my schedule better than her, and we're going on 30 years, but I joke that
God
I've
bless
only
you.
been there for about 15 of them.
Kenny, how does it feel? Now you're the voice of the Rangers on MSG. It's succeeding a legend, Sam Rosen, with your partner Don Maloney. You're really not new because you did radio for so long. So you're really not new to the Rangers. But how does it feel to succeed somebody like Sam Rosen?
Right. It's very exciting to be on the TV side now, but I loved, 29 years on the radio, loved each and every minute of it, working with some great partners and, being a part of the organization and MSG networks for so long. And Sam Rosen is a legend, one of the best to ever do it, Hall of Famer, a great friend of mine for about 40 years. We would travel together, sit together on the flights, and, as great an announcer as he was, he's an even better person. And we were also colleagues at Fox Sports. He worked football for about 20 years. So he'll still be involved. He's going to MC a lot of the Centennial special nights that the Rangers are going to have this year.
It was
But
100 years, right? We did it. I think I hope it works out better than my Giants last year, their 100th anniversary. That I was on a committee to help pick the players, and unfortunately, it wasn't a good year.
big win on Thursday, though. Big win over the Eagles.
Yes, yeah, it was good. Two things we're going to talk about. Kenny, 5 events in 19 days and 4 different sports in 4 different days. You remember those specifics of that?
Yeah, I've had some instances, usually in October when everything's overlapping,
Right.
um, several times where I had football, hockey, the basketball game, and I worked baseball playoffs for a number of years on Fox, including the Bautista home run and bat flip back in
Right.
2015. And there was the one period of time you referenced where it was 5 different sports, including a boxing match. By the way, one of my most memorable events was the 20-inning game, Mets Cardinals. I was working that one with Tim McCarver back in 2010
That was in St. Louis. I think
in St. Louis.
I think Mike Pelfrey got the win in relief that game, if my
Uh,
memory's
You're
correct.
absolutely right. And
Yeah.
and I think my claim to fame is I never went to the men's room the entire game, 7 hours.
I could do it. At my age, there's no way I could do that.
Because you never think the game's going to go that long. You figure it's going
No.
to end right after the 11th to 12th, but I think it's a mental thing. I think Tim only went once, but I never actually left the booth that game.
Tim was one of my favorite guys. Always
Oh,
kind of smart.
you know
Kenny,
what? Two of the you'd appreciate this. Two of my favorites that I worked with, Tim and Jeff Torborg, and there's a great documentary that
nice man.
came
What a
out.
nice man.
Oh, there's a great documentary. I don't know if you've had the chance to see it, but they were two of my favorites for sure.
That is for me. I worked with 15 managers in my time, and you with these guys from February to November. And when Jeff got fired, I actually cried. I mean, people don't understand when a coach leaves, manager leaves, affects the coaches, his family, his wife, his kids, and it's a tough deal. To be, when something like that happens. That's why when a guy gets fired, I don't take it so cavalierly anymore. I never did.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But if you and the listeners get a chance to check out the documentary that Jeff's son Dale was a big part of putting together, it's a tremendous, he had a tremendous baseball life. Catching perfect games, no hitters, Sandy Koufax, managing so many teams, coaching Yankees, Mets. It's really a terrific documentary.
Kenny, what are your highlights? How to be working? I did radio on the '94 Stanley Cup Finals.
And Howie's involved in that one too, believe it or not. Howie Rose had done the '93 Stanley Cup Final for NHL radio, and then in '94 he was doing the Rangers games on the radio. And once it became apparent that they might advance to the final, he was going to be unavailable. So I stepped in and pinch hit for Howie in '94. He was in the Rangers booth, I was in the NHL radio booth, and that was a lifetime memory. I was only 26 at the time, had the opportunity to call the Stanley Cup when the Rangers won it, first time in 54 years, and actually met my wife during that series. We met for the
Wow, that's
first time
crazy. Kenny,
after Game 5 of that series.
Kenny, tell me about your love affair with the Vancouver Canucks. How did that come about?
Yeah, I was a big Canucks fan as a youngster. Started when I was 5 or 6 years old. I'm not sure exactly how it started. I think I liked the name. The Vancouver Canucks sounded like a cool team name. I liked the jerseys. And back then you couldn't see many games. I would only see them when they came to New York to play the Rangers or Islanders, and later on the Devils. And I couldn't even get the box scores until 2 days later because they played so late, and the box score wouldn't even be in the newspaper the next day. But I kept scrapbooks and followed the team like crazy, and a lot of good memories from those days.
Kenny, you know what I liked about your book is you took care of the little guys. You listed all your stat guys, the producers. Like with like 4 pages of people who you work with. You didn't forget anybody because it was a really nice touch.
Well, they're all such a big part of it. The people behind the scenes, and Dennis D'Agostino, a great friend of both
God
of
rest
us,
his soul.
who
Good
passed
guy.
away a couple of years ago. He's certainly mentioned in there, and so many of the others. A lot of people that but the games don't get on without not only the announcers, but there are so many other people involved.
So so next week, did you tell me what's your schedule next week?
So this coming week, tomorrow, as we're speaking, I have a Rangers home game against Edmonton. I have a TNT hockey game, our TNT cruise in Detroit on Wednesday, and then the Rangers are in Toronto Thursday. That's actually not a bad week because it's close cities. And then my football game's in Arizona. So Green Bay Packers, Arizona Cardinals, Sunday. So like I said, this time of year is crazy. 2 or 3 hockey games a week, a football game on Sunday, but really nothing else I would rather be doing. Still love it.
And your wife is a very you're lucky to have a very understanding wife and family, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. She's coming to on one of the trips next week, meeting me on the road. Um, our girls are 22 and 26. They both love sports. Went to a lot of games growing up. So
Olympics is 2002, right? Back then, you did Olympic Games is 2002.
that was the first one. A crazy story, which you probably read about, but the great Mike Emmerich, Doc Emmerich, was scheduled to work those Olympics for NBC, and he had to pull out about a week before due to a situation with his dog. Doc and his wife Joyce. Yeah, no, Doc and his wife Joyce uh, are animal lovers. They have dogs, they have horses, and the dog was ill, and that's how I got my first opportunity, believe it or not. And this coming February, it'll be my 7th Winter Olympics for NBC, calling hockey in Milan. The NHL players are going, so I'll be there along with my NHL partners, Eddie Olczyk and Brian Boucher. But the first one was back in 2002 in Salt Lake. Went to Torino, 2006, Vancouver, Sochi, Russia, Pyeongchang, South Korea, and now Milan coming up this year.
Kenny, is there anything left that you haven't done? Anything on your bucket list that you want to do, haven't done yet?
I've been really lucky, Jay, to work a lot of big events. Worked one Super Bowl. It was the international feed, and it was the last Giants Super Bowl in Indianapolis against the Patriots. So I was on the world feed call, which wasn't seen in the United States. Worked with Joe Theismann.
W-
Three
Was
Stanley
that was that the
Mario Manningham. Yep, that was the
down the
Manningham.
left sideline? I've
You were
been to
pro-
5 Super Bowls.
you were
I've
probably
had
there,
guys
right?
There's 58, so I go back to the Allen
Wow,
Amici game.
wow.
Yankee
You were at
Stadium.
that game?
Yeah, I was
Wow,
in 6 and 17 behind the pole, and
wow.
Allen Amici was running right at me.
Wow, that's amazing.
But
So I worked that Super Bowl for the international TV side. Stanley Cup Finals. I've worked baseball playoffs, the Olympics, as I mentioned. So, just love what I do, like I said, and love the people I work with, and hope to be doing it for a long time.
Kenny, it's a great read. Mike Four Seasons, Triumph Books. You go out and read it. It's a really great story about how hard you work. And like I said in the beginning, not trying to blow smoke. You never come off to anybody ever being not, hey, I'm Marv's son. This is what I deserve. You work for everything you got, and I'm really happy for your success and really proud to be your friend.
Well, thanks, Jay. I really appreciate it. You're the best. We've known each other for a long time, and love the podcast, and always love bumping into you at City Field. So, thanks for
Well,
having me on.
I'll be a pleasure. Good luck in your travels and be safe.
Thanks, Jay. You too.
Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate it.